and welcome to Day 9 Daily 502, where we learn to be a better gamer. Yes! Always works on the second try. In this daily, we're looking at tips and tricks from LiquidNonY as he does amazing things with the Mothership core. Ooh! Part 1 I would describe as simple tricks, like the trick that you could execute within 15 seconds. It's not part of strategy, it's like a Mothership core tactic. But they were really sweet nonetheless. In this game, we're going to see Nony do much more of a build order constructed around what the Mothership can do. And we'll be talking a lot about that in this relatively short game that kind of highlights all the new possibilities that are now available to Protoss. Just a special shout out to LiquidNonY, who helped provide to me these games today. You can follow him on Twitter, twitter.com/LiquidNonY, Liquid N-O-N-I, or N-O-N-Y, whoops, and watch his stream, twitch.tv/LiquidNonY. Let's hop into this game and talk about PvZ very briefly. Very briefly. So, what did Protosses typically do? Let me start over, okay? I'm sorry, I messed that up. That was bad, but we're gonna nail it on the second try, much like a thug snap. In this matchup, Protosses are generally trying to get up 2 bases. It's difficult to do all the things that Protoss need to do with just 2 geysers. It's hard to upgrade and get something like the Colossus and get some of those core units like the Stalker. So we really want these extra gas geysers. That's the biggest reason why Protosses are early expanding pretty much every time. So there's 2 ways to early expand. One is to make a lot of units and then expand. And the other is to build a cannon right off the bat while you expand. That second one is what we most commonly see. A Protoss early expands with Forge. How does the Zerg respond? By double expanding himself. So it's a 3-base Zerg versus a 2-base Protoss. These are the standard norms. What I want to note is the less standard one that was typical at the start of StarCraft 2. The Protoss would open up with 1-gate expand or 3-gate expand. The defense would emphasize Zealots and Sentries. They're cheap enough to be able to deal with any mixture Zerg could throw early on. Roaches, Banelings, Speed Zerglings. The problem with this style and why it was phased out is that there's no way for Protoss to put on pressure. If I'm going Zealot Sentry and I start to move out, what if he just surrounds me with Zerglings and kills me? What if he counterattacks me? All this gets solved by the Mothership core. So let's watch how Nony is going to be doing it. Again, we have Theo. Forgive me, Theo. For any of you who don't know, Quantic Gaming's Theognis is a very strong player. Played in Brood War under the ID Echo of Terran. He does play Terran, but he's been fiddling around with Zerg on the ladder, and it looks like Tyler and I both encountered him, thereby getting him on here twice. So forgive me. This is not the this is not the appropriate demonstration of Theo's skills, but that's fine because we're just looking at LiquidNonY, who I'm going to be calling Tyler from time to time because that's his name. Tyler begins the game. I'm actually going to go to the Tyler cam. Tyler begins the game with the usual set of timings. This is slightly earlier. This is actually an assimilator on 14 instead of 15. This does get you an extra 24 or so gas. And something that a lot of Protosses are doing nowadays, they're rallying for the unit that they want to build. So see, there's the rally on the probe, building the cybernetics core. Right off the bat, we're starting to think things like, if I get 6 pooled, can I hold it off? With a Stalker, you'll be able to deal with it quite reasonably. Zealot coming down after the assimilator gets started. Tyler wants lots of gas for his lots of sentries at the start of the game. And pretty much for only that reason. It's actually kind of bad to get too much gas, especially against a Zerg if you're not trying to build sentries. There we see Mothership core finishes, the Zerglings from Theo step up, And the timing of these Zerglings indicates that he went for pool then gas. Or excuse me, pool then hatch. Whether he got a gas in there early or not, we don't quite know yet. But that's kind of what we would expect. If he did go for a fast gas build, we'd expect there to be speed for these Zerglings before 7 minutes. So if we hit 7 minutes and we haven't seen it, we're pretty much like, yep, he ain't doing it. I'm kind of ignoring what the Chrono Boosts are up to, but this is the standard look. Nexus going down. Extra gateway also down. And this was the really sweet thing that Tyler did. Tyler doesn't know if his opponent has Zergling speed yet. He could be taking a third base. Why would Theo be taking a third base? Well, a lot of Zergs basically say, you just take 3 bases early against Protoss. It's just what you do. It's actually quite bad against someone who's going for what Tyler's doing. Excuse me, what Noni's doing. But there's still players who do it. So look at this really kick-ass thing that Tyler's going to do. He makes this push. He has just his Mothership core here, and he sees no speed yet. These still aren't open, but probes are in range to be able to throw down the pylon here. Notice how easy this is to wall off. Tyler's being very aware, doesn't want to do this too early, so okay. Sees, yep, there's no expansion here. Tyler actually interestingly getting a Twilight Council right off the bat, as well as a Forge at the front. And suddenly coming in here for this push. Which is just really cool. If you look at the mini-map, a lot of what Theo's been covering has been the center of the map, keeping an eye around these things. And Tyler's able to do this little push. Ordinarily, this is quite bad. Almost always, actually, this is quite bad. But that's in Heart of the Swarm. Or excuse me, that's in Wings of Liberty. Here in Heart of the Swarm, Tyler is able to get basically 9 free kills. There's an attempted run-by with Zerglings, which Tyler just warps in 3 Stalkers for defense. And there's some target firing, trying to pick off some more drones. We managed to get 12 kills. And suddenly, the style that would literally be about to lose to all these roaches literally gets to go home. Yeah, zoink. Cool. Super, super cool. Tyler's doing, again, something a little bit weird, unusual. I would, in Heart of the Swarm, damn it, in Wings of Liberty, I would call Blink on 3 gateways bad. I don't know another way to put it. I would just call it weak, flimsy, vulnerable. You would put yourself in a situation where you just wouldn't really have that many Stalkers. Seems kind of weak, right? You would push with, what, 6, 7 Blink Stalkers? Blink could only get you so far, but then his speed Zerglings would surround you. However, what we can do is we can do a reversal. We started off with the Zealots and Sentries attacking, and we used the Stalkers at home for defense. Now we're going to leave the Zealots and Sentries at home for defense, and we can push out quite quickly with Blink Stalkers. And we have enough energy for another recall. So suddenly, the Zerg's going to have a really difficult time taking this expansion. An incredibly difficult time taking this expansion. Is this not clever as hell? I think it's clever as hell. Max Chrono Boost on the Nexus. I would probably be spending all my Chrono Boosts on probes at this point in time. But that is just I. So we can push out with just the Stalkers. This is something that I've seen Tyler do before and leave the Sentries and Zealots back home. Or you can just push out literally with all of this. It's still the appropriate mixture defensively. We didn't end up getting to use our fancy schmancy recall. However, it's easy. We just go into Purifier mode. And we have all the defense we'd ever need. Nice little blink back to funnel the roaches. After all said and done, then we start going for more gateways. Easy peasy for breezy. And then we back up and we get our assimilators. And of course, having built probes the whole time. It's great. It's really cool. So there's two things that we saw there that really were like, what? That are of note. The first is this push. Let me actually go back to it. Right here at 6 minutes. This is the first one. This push is the real mind blower. Because at 7 minutes, we're able to break up into his back door, and we can retreat. That's the first real mind blower that is quite uncommon. It makes this entire build, 3-gate expand, very much so a threatening possibility. The other thing that really blew my mind is blink on 3 gates seems so bad. However, the fact that we can always, always, always retreat with this recall means that we can push with Blink Stalker and Sentry, push with just Blink Stalker and do Sentry defense. A lot of options are now available to us. So rather than stop there, I have another game. Another game for you. We might even get to do a bonus game. This is great. Staley is actually moving along at a clip that I didn't anticipate that it would move along at. I credit coffee. So, my coffee machine sucks. It's a $9 coffee machine. Sometimes the ground coffee slips into the bottom of the pot, and I filled it up like maybe a third of the way for the show, and I think I got some of those unbelievable, delicious ground coffee flecks in my throat. Let's go into the game. Let's go into the game. We have Grisadilla, or Grisadilla. Grisadilla. Hi, Gullhoof. Gull, says Noni. I liked your videos about carriers, and if you haven't seen it, Noni has the most amazing discussion of carriers that you should look up. Carrier Micro Brood War SC2 is what you should look at. Alright, cool. Chrono Boost. Oh, crap butts. Oh, I made a mistake. I made an error. I have notes that I reference for each show. It's not purely the genius of my brain vomiting gold out into the webcam. No, I have notes, because I'm a human. And I overlooked one part in my notes. Let me go back and tell you a little bit about that. I want you to envision the last game. Let me actually speed it up. Oh, crap, I can't believe I forgot this. Hold on, let me... Yeah, there we go. So, we have a wall off. We're also going to have an expansion here. Where should we place our Mothership core to be able to defend the expansion and the ramp? Well, I think everyone would reasonably state here. This seems very reasonable. If we went out too far, like here, we'd run the risk of Zerglings coming and hitting this bottom side. If we stayed a little too far back here, then he could just run up our ramp. So I think everyone would decide that here is a reasonable spot. Noni does something really subtle. This wall off could have its slot here, or he could build this gateway flush down here and plant the cybernetics core there. So that way this would be the exit. Or excuse me, the entrance to his base. Notice that if our Mothership core is here, this is defended. But this would not be. This would be harder to defend. So that's one of the reasons why this wall off is here. What a lot of players will do is, no matter what the ramp is, they'll always put the gateway here and leave the gap here. But that's a mistake because you have to have your Mothership core relate to where this wall off is. Boner. Good. Cool. It's really small, but this is the difference between, 4 Zerglings getting into your base versus 2. Just having this thing here. And also, I like this because you have the extra long warp-in location. Returning back to the game, Tyler looks like he has experienced some sort of early aggression, so he's going for the Zealot, followed by the Assimilator. This is how you would deal with being worried about some early poolage. But still the same concept is going to be applying here. You don't want to get gas too early if we're really not going to be using it. Also, another reason why we, might want to be getting our gas a little later is if we wanted to be expanding a little bit earlier. There's a money placement. You can place it actually 1 hex downward, and it walls on the top. I'm not saying that this is good or bad, I'm just saying that that's true, that you can move it down. Sometimes it's helpful for some builds, sometimes it's hurtful. But cool. Nexus going down for Tyler. Double sentry production. All's good in the world. Let's look at some later game tactics that we're going to see Tyler use. Earlier expansion, it's going to be a little more difficult to do the push that we saw Tyler do prior. Still very much so a possibility, but Tyler's primarily building sentries at this point. Gets the complete wall off. Typically, we would need a forge. So that way we can build cannons back here. We'd have trouble dealing with roaches and banelings and zerglings. That triple threat is a problem, but we have Purify, so we can go into the Purifier mode, becoming a giant cannon, and we can kill off banelings that are approaching in. We don't really need that cannon so much anymore. Tyler is getting the forge, but it's primarily just to have das upgrades. So once again, Tyler is able to do kind of an early move out again. Notice this really sick-ass wall off. This is the entrance into Tyler, or into Noni's base right here. That's walled off at the back. Purifier covers the front. If, for some reason, something gets in, look at how unbelievably smart this is. We could have placed this gateway, say, here, and left a slit here. And then done what? Walled this off. But by having the entrance down here, the Zerglings have to run down here, and then all the way up, and then across. This gives us plenty of time to do an emergency warp in here if we need. Really, really cool. There's the forge upgrading. So cool. Tyler's doing, again, one of these odd unit movements that goes all the way around. And look at Grisadilla. He has his Zergling here. It's going to run into the army soon enough, but Grisadilla is not going to be expecting this. Most Zerg players won't. Pretty cool little attack path. Able to pick off some free Zerglings. Getting a lot of probes up. We should probably have some creative way to be spending this Chrono Boost. Chrono Boost is very high right now. I don't know if Tyler has a reason for that or not, but I've seen that in a couple of his games. Sneaking all the way around. This is actually our first scout of the game. And things honestly look pretty normal back home in the main base. There's really not anything, you know, vomit-inducing at this point in time. Oh my god, that's so sweet, I'm gonna puke! Ah! Right now, I'll actually back up. This is the reason why you can't do this in Wings of Liberty, because I want you to even envision if these extra units were there with him. If he had 2 Zealots and 8 Sentries against 15 Roaches. It's not even close. But notice what this does indirectly. Tyler is able to pull out. If Grisadilla didn't build 15 Roaches, what would Tyler do? He'd stay there and he'd deal a bunch of damage. And there you go. He would just deal a bunch of damage. However, Grisadilla did build these Roaches. So what does that mean? He's behind in drone count. So this is a really simple, this attack, all this attack says is you either die or you're low on drones. One of those two situations. This is a concept known as forcing. You do a play that kills a lot of stuff, and whatever allows him to stay alive, you have effectively forced him to go down that path. So you have forced him to be relatively low on drones. So, you know, Grisadilla ordinarily would want to be doing a Stefano-style extra hatch right now. Actually, Stefano's hatch would be done. Would be rallying with his speed Zerg. His +1 would be done, but no. Absolutely not. So we managed to get our everything recalled. Pylons continuing to go down from Noni. We have the usual blink +2, and this is where players would typically be expanding. But what is this we see from Liquid Tyler? Oh yeah, Liquid Noni, who I keep calling Tyler. Oh yeah. This is one of the sweetest things I think I've ever seen ever. Tyler continues to do these move outs that are far to the right. If for some reason he did a miscalculation, he can always recall. There's the Warp Prism moving up. The huge force starting to make its way up the middle of the map. Here's another common technique, which is called cutting in. So I'm going to just note that Tyler wants to attack right here. This is where Noni's going to be going for the huge attack. But rather than do that, you cut one way and then you pull back. So right now, Grisadilla sees this. He'll reposition some of his stuff. And then Tyler's going to poke in here. And he can pull all the way back out. If for some reason all the roaches were here, Tyler could then take this army and cut up this way. That's still a possibility. If there's too few units, you just attack that location. In other words, cutting into here gives you options. Namely 2. So Noni cuts in here, and then has an option. Where is his duder? It's there. It hasn't really done anything yet. So notice how deep of a cut in this was. We cut in hard, forcing all the units to be there. And then we pull way the hell back again. And the observer goes back to this path. Cool. Wow, we are taking another base. Everything rallies to this side a little bit too late. And the blink up, the accidental target fire of his own dude. And because it's a warp prism, we can warp in upon it. More force fields galore. So good. Killing everything. While this is going on, this is, I would say, a semi-common tactic, but this tactic is generally only used in early game cheese circumstances. Why? Because this army is either gonna die or your main base is gonna die. But look at Tyler, he has a lot of vision coverage in the middle. This army could be together, but it's not. It's spread out. We also have the observer there, just checking up on things. This observer used to be here, but as he attacked up, he went and placed it at the counterattack location. Target firing, killing off everything. And then, thanks to the observer that Noni has, he's able to see this. And he can just doink, get out of there, while doing another attack at the other side. And I actually think that this is really weak. I actually think that this is terrible. This could be really bad, except he has a second recall, which he uses. Yeah! And now he's back. That was awesome to watch. Was that not awesome? And in fact, my favorite part about that is the subtle movements of the observer. The subtle, graceful movements of the observer. Let me come back to the Tyler cam. And just notice all the clever things that this observer does. And I'll actually generalize this. If we are using this Mothership core to do recalls back, to position our army well, to make big, risky plays that could have rewards, but we can back out at the end. The biggest thing, oh yeah, and we have our Mothership to be able to help us block against counterattacks and all this stuff. If we're doing that, we have to have excellent vision. We don't want to recall too early or too late. We want to recall at just the right time. So this observer and your general map awareness is the biggest key to all of it. So watch the observer. Observer first is here, because as we do our cut in over here, We don't want a counterattack coming from that side. We don't want to get surrounded. So notice here on the mini-map, we're starting to do our little cut in here. Yeah. And then, when Tyler decides to back out, he starts moving his army and puts the observer over there. Same idea. If something's coming from the backside, we want to know. And then as Tyler steps up into here, look at the observer just trailing along, checking this path. And then it's going to stop right back here. And it's just going to make sure that there's no huge roach counterattack coming. Why? Because we want to do as much damage in here. We don't want to recall too early. This observer would make it difficult. We also don't want to recall too late. It's really awesome. Tyler's actually still behind in overall supply. Doesn't have an outrageous amount of workers, but has been able to deal a lot of damage. What a wonderful game. What a sweet little demonstration. Got some music stuck in my head, fellas. Great. Part 2 was truly delightful. I loved these games. We're actually going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to do a bonus game where we're going to see part of LiquidNonY going up against Roots TT1. Really slick little game. I'm sure some of you saw it on his stream today. But what most excites me about the game we're going to see in part 3 is the way the Mothership core creates such a solid defense that we can do a very, very thin defense and a fast tech play. So, be back in 2.